YouTube, Awesome Rider here. Welcome to my review for Power Rangers Unlimited Coinless. This is the first of our next set of 2 Unlimited stories that are also leading and directly tying into the upcoming Darkest Day event, which is going to last over a year. This one, of course, focusing on the world of the Coinless, Lord Draken, and building the team of Drakkon Rangers. A little bit late on this one. I apologize. There was a lot going on last week in regards to news and other videos, and I didn't really get a chance to read it until this last weekend. But let's talk about it. Obviously, what else are we doing here? So I did like this issue. There was a lot I liked about this issue, but I also had issues with this issue. Basically, we have Draken and Kia, who just recently teamed up. He recruited her, and of course she has a lot of anger at him because she remembers what he did during Shattered Grid because of her Shattered Grid memories, but they're kind of an odd couple. They go to the world of the Coinless to recruit help for this overall conflict coming with Master Vile and Mistress Darkness. With Mistress Vile and Dark Spectre. I don't even know where Mistress Darkness came from. And that raises my first question as we enter this world where we left off the world of the Coinless where it was trying to be invaded by Dark Spectre. And he made his first attempt that was thwarted. And then the second one where was the cliffhanger, where it showed up with like an evil Andros. Like, effectively, he's Astronandros. That sounds like a weird medication. Anyway. So we left off there with them invading. We didn't know what was going to happen, but presumably another conflict, but we opened up with a world where Dark Spectre is invading, and he's taken over people as he can sort of take over people with his Dark Spectre energy, as we saw in Power Rangers Universe, which is really cool. That is something I did like about this issue, is much like the current run, it's taking advantage of mythology from other corners of the comic universe, and I think it's really cool how much this is actually drawing from Power Rangers Universe, especially since that series was kind of more like mixed reception, and I agree with some of the parts, but I think it had some really cool lore and story additions, so I'm glad to see that they're, not going to try to sweep it under the rug and actually take advantage of the cool stuff it set up, whether it's stuff like this with the Dark Spectre, or the Master Arches, or of course expanding on the emissaries. But anyway, my point is I'm long-winded. My first question is raised is, are they implying here, I can't tell honestly because I'm stupid, I'm the dumbest boy in school, are they implying that there's one Dark Spectre that's trying to invade the multiverse, or that there's multiple Dark Spectres? I'm honestly unclear on that part based on this issue. Regardless though, Draken and Kia make it there, they hook up with the world of the Coinless Rangers, who if you didn't know, I would highly recommend reading Draken New Dawn before you read this or the Darkest Day event, because not only is it a great underrated series, but it sets up a lot of status quo. But to sum up, effectively, Ranger Slayer had to sort of unite the world of the Coinless Resistance and Draken's forces into one umbrella as they fought off the forces that were attacking for Dark Spectre. And we see them pick this up as their resistance now against Dark Spectre's forces. And one thing that is also sort of confusing, like it's sort of explained, but I'm also sort of confused by, is their power coins. Spoiler alert for Draken New Dawn, so if you want to read it, stop here, go read it, and come back, or never come back, it's whatever you want to do. But at the end of that, they basically sacrifice the power coins, because if you remember, the power coins could spread their energy out through all the Ranger Centuries, and they decided to use that same skill at the end to spread it out amongst everybody, and gave them all like Mystic Knights of Tirnanog-esque like archaic Ranger armor, which was actually a pretty cool idea, but it sacrificed the coins, and that lies with one of my mixed thoughts, which I'll show up at the end. But this one picks up and they have like a version of them. Like Ranger Slayer shows up morphed, and later it shows that they were storing what looked to be like a glued together version. So I don't know, I just have some confusing questions on how all that stuff worked. But regardless, we get all these people together, and obviously tensions run high, and that's one of the highlights of the issue, is there's some really good interactions between all the characters, as obviously the dynamics between especially Ranger Slayer and Draken are really, heated because of the way he basically used her as his Green Ranger. Like, they have a very similar mirror dynamic to Rita and Tommy, and then him and Ranger Slayer, which is rather cool. And you get to see some glimpses at the character interactions, and that's one of the things I'm looking forward to most in regards to this team and how their story goes forth, is I hope they take advantage of that. Especially with characters like Kia. Obviously they've honed in on her dislike for Draken, but as excited as I am to see her back, because she's personally one of my favorite comic characters, I hope they don't lose her character in this. Alpha 1, another favorite comic character, and I'm glad to see he has a role in this. That's been one of my disappointments about the current run, is I feel that they've lost his character motivation in this, is that his whole thing was he wanted to fight evil, but he thought Zordon was a half measure, and now he's serving evil. They sort of explain it, but it doesn't fit for me. And with Kia, her whole thing was she thought Rangers were the problem. Obviously now there's bigger things going on, so becoming a Ranger to, set all that aside is fine. But I hope that doesn't get lost for her character in this story and going forward, because I think it could be one of the most interesting dynamics. Hell, maybe she'll even heel turn and work with Dark Spectre, thinking, well, I'll stop Rangers. I don't know. I just hope they don't lose that. Bottom line is, though, there was some good interactions between the characters, and it sets the groundwork for potentially interesting stuff in the future, especially with a team that's almost like a Suicide Squad, not in the, way that they work in the Suicide Squad, but you know what I mean in the sense that it's a bunch of people that don't necessarily like each other, and there could be some interesting dynamics there that I hope they take advantage of. But basically, he recruits them and tells them what's going on. That's something else I'm a little bit confused about in regards to the multiversal stuff, is like, they're clearly dealing with a lot here, and so I guess I'm going to assume that Dark Spectre is a threat for both worlds at the same time, because, I don't know, I just can't imagine that they would be on board for this, because they have a lot on their plate, and they're like, okay, let's go to this other world, and they mention like it should help, but I'm just confused about it, and I feel like they skipped over the scene where Draken delivered his pitch. But they're all on board for the idea of re-rangering up to go to the Prime world and fight this off. Another interesting thing that is brought up is they do discuss the interesting potential of meeting their alternate selves again, which that is another dynamic I'm really looking forward to seeing, is the Coinless Rangers interacting with the primary Rangers. And Jason is only in this briefly, but I really hope that Coinless Jason comes back and interacts with main Jason, because both of them are currently not rangered up, and they're for similar and different reasons, and I think that could make a really interesting interaction. So I hope they do that, because Jason is just kind of guarding over the power coins. So effectively, they're using the splitter thing that will transfer the powers to everyone, and I'm just confused about it, because for me, I felt like that in general creates a slightly weaker power, but they're using Draken as the base, but then they need more coins, and he says, I got 2 coins, so I can spare them, and they bring up, okay, the White Ranger coin can't be split for whatever reason, but let's do the Green Ranger one. But I thought he just had 1 coin. I thought his 2 coins merged into the Black Dragon coin. So I was honestly really confused by that, and like how, like I understood what they were going for. It's okay, we're using Draken's powers and the rest of the Shattered coins to make these powers, but I felt like there was a lot of like stuff that was ill-explained or like explained by duct taping it. Speaking of, they also introduced the idea that this entire time, through this entire arc, since we met all these characters way back in the original Mighty Morphin Draken storyline, Trini has had Billy's coin, which has been MIA because there never has been any Blue Ranger sentries or anything like that. So that's like an obvious big retcon because they want this Draken mmpr team. So I have some very mixed thoughts on that, but at the end of the day, they do morph into the Drakkon Rangers. We get these new MMPR-inspired Draken-esque suits, which I'll be honest, I really do like them a lot. They're probably some of my more favorite comic designs. I like them a ton. I think it's cool to see, even though it's not my favorite variant, I think it's really cool to see a primary green Draken suit. It's actually really funny, a couple months ago, I was trying to think about the Draken suits, and I couldn't remember exactly what like Evolution 3 or something looked, or Evolution 2 looked like, and I went to look it up, and then I got to thinking, I was like, I wonder what an all Green Ranger Draken would look like. But anyway, I think that's a cool idea. They have this all like very Shark-esque look to it that looks like they ran it through a Wild Force Blue Ranger filter. But they're all overall pretty cool designs that I really like a ton, and they really do feel like the Drakkon Rangers. And it's interesting the lineup you have. I mean, obviously you have stuff you'd expect like Ranger Slayer and Trini, but then you have Bulk as the Red Ranger, which he has some interesting scenes with Skull where he gets to mention that he was a Red Ranger sentry in this. I think that'll be interesting. I'm mixed on it because I think it's kind of cool and has some interesting potential, but also think it's kind of a weird, boring choice at the same time. With that being said, like if this was played for jokes, kind of like the show or the way they did that what if, Purple and Orange Ranger Bulk and Skull thing, it would seem weird. But after seeing Paul Schreier as Jack in Hyperforce, I can totally buy a version of that character's more gravitas. Which is funny though, because for the most part, when I'm reading the comics, they are completely different characters in my head. Like, I don't even hear the show voices at all. But anyway, but for my most favorite, though, is getting to see Scorpina as the Black Ranger. I think that's cool as all hell. Just the fact that she's a Ranger, it makes sense that it's black, because if I remember right, she was in that relationship with Adam. And, he wasn't the Black Ranger in this dimension, but I think he was a Black Ranger sentry. I just think that's really cool. Bottom line is cool designs. We end off on Kimberly getting separated from the rest, seemingly. She's left behind for now, and we seemingly are 1 man down before we even get through the rest of this mission. But that's where we end off. And I did like the issue. I think it brought up some cool dynamics. It was really cool to see Draken interact with them after all this time. It brought up and teed up a lot of potentially interesting character dynamics between these characters and interacting with their other characters. Lots of cool use of lore. I was very confused by certain things in regards to the lore. Maybe someone can explain it better to me in regards to what they were doing with the coins and like why Draken's is 2 coins. But I do, admittedly, my last thing is I do have mixed thoughts on the powers. I love the suits. I love the idea of this team. I like a lot about the idea of the way the powers came about, like this Draken team that's based off Draken and MMPR and based off of this world. Kind of a dark mirror of the MMPR world. It makes sense these Rangers would look like that. With that being said, I really feel like this wasn't the original plan or intention when they were writing Draken New Dawn. I think they just really wanted an MMPR-esque team for this, which is why they forcibly brought back the, coins grafted together, Billy's coin being brought back. And I'm a little bit disappointed at that, because when they destroyed the coins at the end of Draken New Dawn, I wasn't sure when they were going to pick this story up, but I thought there was interesting potential for something different. I'm like, are we going to see completely new powers? Maybe they'll get the Zeo powers. What if we saw Jason become Zeo Ranger 5 Red? What if we got to see Scorpina become Zeo Ranger 3 Blue? What if they're just new powers altogether? I think there was potential for something different, and even though personally I'm not as upset about using MMPR in this series, the main series overall, because they kind of have to and it creates good stories anyway, I thought with something like this, because it's not the main series, they had the opportunity to deviate. So I'm a little bit disappointed by that and have some mixed thoughts. I'm going to give the issue an overall 3 out of 5. I thought it was solid, there was a lot I enjoyed, but there's also lots of mixed aspects and confusion. With that being said now, I'm really looking forward to the Hyperforce issue, probably even looking forward to just that standalone issue more than the event, but I'm looking forward to all the comic stuff across the board as we head into this event, as I've been enjoying the writing. But what did you think of this issue and the Drakkon Rangers? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.